Hello world and welcome to this part of the tutorial. And in today's tutorial actually we are going to be covering the game over scene and the play scene. So that so that that's what we are going to be covering in this tutorial. But first of all, we can just easily go ahead and delete this enemy scene over here. So we don't need to instantiate the enemy scene anymore. So you already got the enemy timer doing that, so we don't need to do that anymore. First of all, we need to go back to the HUD, and here we are going to create another margin container. So I just name this game over. And so first of all, let's go to the anchor preset over here. I'm going to set it to full rect. So now what you actually want is we want a label. We want to add a label node as the children. We want it at the top. Actually, I think first of all, let's go back to the inspector of the margin container for the game over. So go over this theme overrides property. Go over the constants, and so we're going to be adding some constant 40, 60, 40, and maybe 20. We can actually change this later on if it doesn't match our game over scene. So now we can easily go ahead and write the text game over. And so we're also going to display the player score over here, but we don't want to display it with the same label. I'm deeply sorry for the noises. So but as we've discussed earlier in the previous tutorials about the how to hide the label setting, so we are going to do that for our game over scene also. So for the font, actually we want to change. I want to explain the font property of the label. So for any text, if you actually want to change how it looks, so if you want to change the font that the text is using, by default is going to be using some predefined font. So if you want to change it, we are going to be dragging a font file to this font property over here. So we already have this Kenney Fonts font file. So the link to this font file will be available in the description. So we can just drag it over to the font property. So I will do the same thing for the text, and I will do the same thing for the label. So now let's change the size to maybe 50. We want to change the color to maybe this red. Okay, I think that's very okay. I'm not going to be adding any outline, but we can add the shadow. You can just change these things around to suit your needs. So you don't have to follow exactly what I'm doing. So I also want it to be centered. And so if you want to duplicate a node, you can easily press Ctrl D to duplicate the node. So now we can already see that we have this the same text, the same label setting, and we don't want that actually. So this should be your score is So but if you change the size, we're going to see that both the first label and the second label size are getting changed. This is because both of them are referencing the same label setting. By referencing, I mean both of them are using the same label setting. And if you want to separate it so that label use his own separate label setting, and the label 2 also uses his own label setting, we're going to right click and right click the label setting over here. I'm going to click this make unique. And so what this does is that it disconnects the label 2 from our first label. So if I click the make unique over here, and if I just go back to the font size and change things, we're going to see that we are getting the effect that we actually want. So you can make this maybe green and make it dark. Also, we don't want it, we want it to be transparent actually. So it's not a must to just copy exact value that I have here, because obviously we want this color to have a very warming color, a very peaceful colors actually, and that's why we are choosing color green. And for the shadow, we don't want any shadow at all, so we can just click that. And okay, we are getting some stuff over here, but because we don't want this your score is to stay to not it down over here. And to do that, uh, okay, well, first of all, since we encounter such an error like this, a problem like this, don't forget we can actually use a container to align all of our labels. And this is a very good time to see the node in action actually. So don't forget, since uh, we want to align them vertically, we are going to be using the ferret container. So let's just go over here. Oh, sorry, I meant the fig box container actually. So you can label this as you can rename this as labels, and we are going to be dragging all of our labels as this child. Okay, right now the issue that we were fixing earlier has been fixed. So now we can add another new label that says that your I score is okay. The reason why I'm adding this your score is and your I score is to actually explain some other few functionalities, like how to save data in Godot, the Godot engine. So there are various ways to save our data, because our I score is actually going to be a data. So we can easily do some basic check, like if our score is greater than our high score, we want to change our high score because we've already beaten our high score. So that's why we're adding all this. Your score is and your high score is, and that is for the labels. And you also need the buttons. We can also go ahead and add the free box container. So but we actually need the h box container, so because we want like a menu button over here and a restart button over here. So uh, you can already see that it's taking the full width and height, and we don't want that. Actually, we also don't want to center it, but you can just put it around here. I think here should be fine. And so we are going to be adding the buttons. They should be menu and another button, but here we can just click this shrink end, so that don't forget to choose this expand, so that it's going to be taking the full width available. So yeah, we're going to make this restart, and right now we can actually, I was thinking, I don't think we want it to be vertically aligned to the center, because if you want to, you actually want to make some feature changes to this thing, we want it to be as responsive as we want it to. So if you click the shrink end, we can easily go to the margin container, and we're going to change this margin button so that we can control where those two buttons are. So just drag them up over here. You can also change the margin right and the margin left. So but to ensure that the nodes are centered, we are going to ensure that both the margin left and the margin right have the same value. So if you are going to be using 70, uh, the margin right also should be 70. So I think it looks okay right now, but if you actually want them to be more centered, you can easily change the margin left and the margin right. So I think let's just leave it at 70. I think it's okay. And right now we can change the buttons name, menu, and restart. And before we connect the press signals, if uh, if you don't know what that was, when we click on this button, if you want something to happen, we are going to connect the press signal with our script, our HUD script, or other scripts in our scene. But for now, before we do that, we can easily customize this button. If you go under the theme overrides, you can change the color. You can change the font that this button is using. First of all, let's change the font actually. And we're going to change the font size also. Um, the 48, that's too big. Maybe 20. let's stick with maybe 24. Let's stick with 24. So we are not going to make any changes to the button yet. You can easily go ahead and change things, and you can change the, if you want, when we hover over the text and we want to change the color, you can change the over here. So the font over, and the normal font color, you can change it here. When you focus on this, you can change this over here: font color, font focus, and font outline. You can easily go ahead and just try all this out, and they are not that difficult to understand, but for beginners I would recommend you try them all out. So, but we are not going to be explaining all those functionalities in this tutorial. So, and right now we are going to be adding a texturate. So the reason why we are adding this texturate is because we want uh, this game over your high score is all these nodes from here to here. We want them to pop out when the game is actually over. So we are going to be dimming everything else, but we don't want to dim all this game over, because that's the main information. And so what texture does is that we can use it to display a texture like an image, but we can also use it to display like a tide texture. So definitely we are going to be using a texturate instead of a sprite 2D node. So to add the texture, you can easily add the texture over here, and we want a gradient texture. I just stick with this gradient texture over here, and if we want it behind all other nodes in our uh, game over node, so we're actually going to place it before all other nodes, so that it now stays in the background and the other nodes are displayed on top of it. So now when you click on this gradient, you can change the values of the gradient. The gradient is moving from here to here. We can actually change how it moves so that it doesn't flow from left to right. So, but for now, let's just go ahead and just change it to some white, both of them to some kind of white. Okay, I think that's okay. So for now, we're actually not going to be using any of this, but first of all, don't forget we need to connect the pressed signal for both the menu and the restart button. And so right now, let's go ahead and save our scene. It's very, very important. Also, sorry, we need to hide this this game over node over here. The reason why I've been calling this since sometimes is because we can actually extract a scene from here. If you just click on this, we can create a new scene from over there. So when I said scene, I meant the game over node over here, this magic container, and all is child. So that's what I meant. So also, I think I've explained this, that if you uh disabled the feasibility property of a parent, it gets applied to all the children. So when we disable this feasibility property of the game over, all the nodes inside it feasibility are also disabled. And so we're going to actually create a new scene. So this is our menu scene. So we don't need it to be elaborative. We just can easily add a node. Don't forget we use node for grouping, but we can also use it for a root child of a root uh, a root node of a scene that maybe has no functionality at all. So, and that's what we are doing over here. So just name this main. So we are going to be adding yet a margin container, and we are going to be setting it so it stays at the bottom. Don't forget to click the expand over here. You can already see this is not working. The reason why it's not working is because of this root node, which is the node. Because don't forget, the node has no functionality at all. So we mainly use it for grouping, and so there is no 2D coordinate that we are telling this magic container to resize to. So well, you can see that we can still use the anchor preset. It's going to be using the the our game scene resolution. So you can easily use that. So now we are going to be adding uh, a VBox container. So and here we are going to be adding buttons as the children. So before we do that, let's go ahead. Let's go over the inspector. Let's go to the theme properties over here. We're going to be changing the margin left, margin top, margin right, and the margin bottom. And so this is going to be our play button. And so as usual, let's change the font. Let's change the font size. And we're going to be duplicating this node actually 3 times. So this is going to be our about, and this is going to be our exit. So let's add in the appropriate text, exit, and about. And again, we are going to be adding a texturate as the background over here. Don't forget, we want it before the margin container. We want it to actually take the full rect, so we know exactly where to do that. And let's go ahead and change the color. You can just change the color to whatever you like. I think this looks good. You can add more color by just dragging and just clicking on an empty area. So if you actually want to add another color over here, I can just click over this and new color gets added. And when I right click, we no longer have that color in our color ramp. So this is actually a color ramp actually. So think that's look okay. Let's save our scene. And we are going to be attaching a script to the menu scene. And we are going to be connecting the pressed signal for play, for the about, and for the exit button. For the exit, we just want to quit everything. So to quit the game, you can just call the get tree function, and we are going to call the quit method of the get tree. For the about, we just leave it as it is for now. So for the play, we actually want to change the scene to the uh, to our main scene over here. This is the main scene. But first of all, we need to load it. So let us name it. Let us create a new variable, name it game. Then let us load this scene. And now we're going to get our tree, and we're going to call this for method change scene to pad. So we're going to pass in the game. There is another way to do this actually. You can just call the change scene to file, and we're going to pass in uh, the location of uh, the scene file. But since we've already loaded the game scene, you can just call the change scene to pad. So now you can run. We can click on this play button over here or press F5. So, and we are going to select the menu scene as our main scene. So when the player runs the game, the player is actually going to land in to our menu scene first. And so let's click the play, and the player can easily play our game right now. So also there are some things that we'll be adding in the future, but right now this tutorial is getting long. We've not finished with our HUD functionalities yet, because we've not set the game over condition, and we need to set it. So that's what we'll be doing in the next tutorial, and we'll be fixing some stuffs also. So I'll meet you in the next tutorial, and stay safe. If you found the video helpful, please leave a like, a comment, and kindly subscribe. If you want to support the continuous development of the tutorial, you can support me on Patreon, or you can kindly buy me a coffee. So thank you so much for joining me in this tutorial, and bye. Ooh, game over. Yes, I got shot. Okay.